A special thank you to each of our subscribers who make this channel possible. Here's today's story. Once upon a time in America, there was a tyrant, and Congress rejected him totally. The tyrant referred to as King George III, the focus of the Declaration of Independence. Nowadays, we see it as a given, yet the Declaration represented an immense political breakthrough. It marked the beginning of what would become the United States of America, asserting certain unalienable rights that were deemed more important than any king or crown. In order to safeguard those rights, our founders emphasized that the people held the power to alter or abolish the government, specifically British rule over the American colonies. The idea that the people have unalienable rights became so standard that it slipped into cliché. The essence of the famous preamble to the Declaration: we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, is that government should exist to safeguard our rights. A revolutionary idea at a time when governments primarily existed because one person was descended from another. Over time, the notion that the people possess unalienable rights became so commonplace it turned into a cliché, often used in car commercials. However, this was no throwaway line. These rights are reaffirmed throughout the foundational documents of the United States. Life and liberty aren't merely embellishments. They are fundamental aspects. They are the reason the entire American system is structured as it is. The Declaration pronounces these rights to be so important that it's worth overthrowing a government over them. But one should not undertake revolution against a tyrannical government lightly, the Declaration says, going on to provide a massive litany of complaints as justification. In modern times, the full list was considered to be the boring part of this document, lacking the vim and vigor of "we hold these truths to be self-evident" and other such bars from the preamble. But this year, it's become a bracing read. Listed among the reasons to boot the British monarch are transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. Really hits different now, huh? Trump's secret police have been kidnapping people, and in some cases, sending them to random countries they're not even from, including to Centro de Confinamiento del Terrorismo, CECOT, a notorious prison in El Salvador. The abductees need not have done anything wrong. Having tattoos or the word of a corrupt cop is enough. American citizens, including children, can also be seized and ejected, even by mistake, and the long-term Republican goal is to do this on purpose. From the beginning, this has all been profoundly un-American, and it wasn't surprising when the Trump administration ran into some legal problems. A district court judge issued an injunction against the Department of Homeland Security, requiring it to add a fairly basic form of due process to its deportation machine. Detainees set to be deported must be told where they are going, so they can have the chance to explain that being sent to that specific country may result in their torture or death. This small modicum of process is mandated by the Constitution of the United States, the judge wrote. Small is too right. Giving someone the opportunity to pipe up before being shipped off to a place that might kill them is not exactly a radical affirmation of human rights. But this is where we are as a country. The right-wing justices of the Supreme Court stayed the injunction. So the DHS can now go right back to shipping people off to CECOT, or somewhere even worse, without telling them where they are going or hearing out why they should not go. The pause on the lower court's injunction happened via what is known as the shadow docket. By temporarily blocking or declining to block a lower court's order, SCOTUS makes a decision without officially making a decision, and can do so without bothering to explain its reasoning. Even though there is no written opinion for the ruling, there is a dissent from the 3 liberal justices. The government has made clear in word and deed that it feels itself unconstrained by law, free to deport anyone anywhere without notice or an opportunity to be heard, wrote Justice Sonia Sotomayor. She concluded that the majority is rewarding lawlessness. When the lady is right, she's right. President Trump has always been explicit about his desire to seize as much power for himself as possible, and he's now surrounded by people who share his urge for total control. Trump has told his followers they won't have to vote anymore if he is elected. The Trump Organization's official merch store sells a Trump 2028 hat. The last time he lost an election, he incited an armed insurrection against Congress while it was certifying the results. After coming back into power, he ordered a dictator-chic military parade to celebrate his birthday. He took over the troops of the California National Guard, bypassing the California governor, to deploy them against Californians protesting against his immigration raids. He has formally directed criminal investigations into people who opposed him. Most recently, he has casually threatened to arrest Zoran Mamdani, the Democratic nominee for New York mayor, over his pledge to fight back against ICE. His underlings have done one better and threatened to strip him of citizenship and deport him. Trump has mostly issued executive order after executive order to enact his agenda because Congress doesn't have the votes to pass such unpopular laws. He's also used executive orders to defund the laws Congress has passed, like the TikTok ban, which has now led directly to Congress passing unpopular laws on the promise that Trump will simply override the provisions he doesn't like. Congress is meant to be the most powerful part of the federal government, but the Republican Congress under Trump has receded into a group of weak-willed simpletons, content to sell out their constituents for little more than signed merch. Not content with usurping congressional authority, Trump's executive orders have barged straight into reinterpreting and rewriting the Constitution itself. For example, by purporting to end birthright citizenship, a cornerstone of the U.S. as we know it. In theory, there is one last important check on a power-mad president, one whose contempt for the laws of the land knows no bounds. That check is the Supreme Court, a body of jurists who serve life terms, and who can strike down illegal actions at will. Last week, the court issued a ruling in a lawsuit over the birthright citizenship executive order. As it does so often these days, it made an enormously consequential decision without actually making a decision. While declining to actually consider whether or not Trump's EO is unconstitutional, SCOTUS ruled that lower courts cannot issue a nationwide injunction against that order. But the de facto result is that citizenship is a privilege and not secured by birth in the 28 states that haven't sued to challenge one of Donald Trump's executive orders. It is an odd decision, not least because birthright citizenship is guaranteed by the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, the first sentence of which reads, "All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside." To be clear, SCOTUS didn't override the 14th Amendment. It just pretended that it would be some kind of a horrible overreach to tell the executive branch that the 14th Amendment is real. This is alarming for a lot of reasons, but the 14th Amendment in particular, a Reconstruction Amendment enacted after the Civil War of 1861, is the cornerstone of modern-day constitutional law. Before the Civil War and Reconstruction, the Bill of Rights didn't apply to state governments. New York could abridge its citizens' right to free speech, even if the federal government couldn't. The 14th Amendment guarantees that states cannot deprive Americans of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, words that already appeared verbatim in the Fifth Amendment, which had previously only applied to the federal government. The people have rights against the powerful. That is what America is about. Over the next 150 years, the Supreme Court began to grapple with the admittedly broad categories of life, liberty, and property, and/or pursuit of happiness. The problem is that you can't just look up life and liberty in a dictionary and get a bulleted list of what Americans can or cannot do. But by the mid-20th century, the Supreme Court was asserting that Americans have the fundamental right to contraception. Since condoms aren't mentioned in the Constitution, the legalese version gets lost in the weeds, but the implications are clear. The rights of the people are paramount, and the government must exist to protect them. As we navigate through the complexities of modern governance, it is imperative to remember the foundational ideals that birthed this nation. The fight for unalienable rights continues, and it is our duty to ensure that the government remains accountable to the people, safeguarding the liberties that define us as a nation. That's all for this story. We upload videos every day covering many different subjects, so hit that subscribe button to stay informed. Thanks for watching.